And then there's more like, if you're familiar with how BART gets its power, it's an electric third rail that you pick up off of. These technologies use that, and they have what's called a bogie, which is the power pickup, and the brakes and the motor and such are encased underneath, and then the vehicle is just kind of dumb on top of it. And then there's these suspended systems, so more like maybe a ski gondola. So there's all sorts of different flavors, and it's not clear who's going to eventually win. It's just that this technology is lucky enough to be in the lead. So PRT's first application is coming to London Heathrow Airport, which is the world's third biggest airport, I believe. And in the UK, Thatcherism privatized the airport, so BAA is the operator and owner of Heathrow Airport. And they conducted a 2-year study thinking about their transportation needs, and they had requirements for low emissions and so forth, and high quality of service. And they looked at putting in more buses and APMs, which are automated people movers, like you might see at an airport. And PRT won for 60% travel time savings and 40% cost savings. And they decided on a pilot, and then once the pilot works, they'll expand. They held a competition, and the Ultra system won that. And then they actually took a bit of an equity interest in the company. So here's a look at the first system for Heathrow Airport. It's about 2 miles. There's 2 stations in the parking lot here. And then it comes up here and into Terminal 5. And Terminal 5 is this amazingly huge terminal. So it's a relatively small system, opens at the end of the year. And then it's going to grow over time. So Heathrow Airport, here's Terminal 5, and then it would come over here, and it would go underneath the runway in a tunnel to connect to the other terminals. And then there's some airports and other parking lots and so forth that it would connect up to. I think it ends up being about 20 miles at full build-out. And here's a look at some of the guideway under construction, the track under construction. So applications of this technology, it's kind of a niche technology, like a shuttle bus on steroids. It's not really a line haul system. Great for airports, great for office parks and major activity centers. And so in the Bay Area, there's about 17 of these big office parks with about 35,000 jobs in each of them. And you can kind of blanket these places with putting in a station. If you look at the 200-meter walk radius, everybody's within a few meters of a station here. And typically we try to find 1,000 workers or 1,000 people within walking distance of the stations. And certainly could be quite helpful for SB 375 in the next session to helping achieve some of those objectives. Let's look at one application at SJC, that's San Jose Airport. There's a project on the books to put an automated people mover in with 3 stations connecting from the light rail station here to the airport terminal to the new BART line here. And then the PRT version, as opposed to the automated people mover version, has a lot more stations, and you can connect it. They have some office towers over here on this side by the light rail and some hotels and such. And then you can serve each of the airport terminals and all the parking lots. And then they have a new soccer station coming over here, and some new housing coming over here. And also you could even go up and serve Santa Clara University. So you can do a lot more with it. And head-to-head, it's cheaper, it's faster, and it's easier to build than a bigger people mover structure. It's nice and green. And in this application, it connects up with light rail, with bus, with BART, with the Caltrain commuter rail, and with the ACE, which is more long-distance commuter rail. It makes them more effective. And it's easy to kind of tweak this system or extend it like it's Legos. And the Airport Commission thought about the people mover, and they said they really wanted something that had a better passenger experience, because you ended up taking the people mover into the airport, then having to get your bags off and take a shuttle bus over to the terminal you wanted to. So they really didn't like that experience. And it works for Silicon Valley, I think. It's kind of a good idea. So there's actually a sort of the start of a procurement there underway. And when we build these PRT systems, or when we design them, we look at situations like this, where this is kind of a freeway, and we like to see if we can kind of snake in underneath it rather than go over it right along the berm there. So these kind of issues come up when we're planning for it. So that was a look at airport applications. And then for office parks, this is one in Dublin Pleasanton in the East Bay. And you can see it's kind of a 2-dimensional grid alignment for where the tracks go. This is actually being filled in with some housing, because this is a BART station here. Here's a regional shopping center over here. Here's some housing in the office park here. And this is Oracle and Kaiser, and there's a bunch more jobs here and so forth. At build-out, there'll be about 10,000 residents, 30,000 jobs. This is a 1 million square foot retail center, so it's a huge retail center. The BART station comes here. So there's a lot of real estate value here, and so it makes sense to put in a $200 million personal rapid transit system. And you get this concept of a huge mixed-use transit village where people might take the PRT to go to Starbucks to get some coffee, if it's cheap enough. And if we can fix an auto center place like this, there's a lot of driving associated with this office park, then there's 200 other places in the U.S. like it. So it's nice, if we can fix one of these places, we can fix them all. When we think about people commuting to these suburban office parks, we got to get them from front door of their house to the front door of their office, right, door to door. So if we take an abstract vision of this PRT system at the office park, so we blanket it with transit, that's great as a last mile solution, and it's great to get people to interesting places in the middle of the day for lunch. But then if people are going to take the train or the bus, they've got a first mile problem to get to the train station. And so when you provide a great last mile solution, it turns out that people get pretty motivated to ride their bike to the train station or what have you to get out of their car. And then for shorter commutes, people might bike halfway and then take the PRT in the last mile. Also makes carpooling more effective. So typically you're thinking in office parks, you're thinking of forming a carpool with somebody in your particular building. So there's 400 people you can match with. But now you've got the scale of the entire office park, maybe 30,000 people. So your chances of matching somebody 20 miles for a 20-mile commute are much higher. And with new cell phone technology, you can really kind of glue the commute alternative picture together so it's much more competitive with a no-brainer experience of driving alone. And then you can add in and make car sharing a lot more effective because you can have 1 or 2 car sharing depots for this whole square mile area, and then dispatch with cell phones and so forth. So it makes car rental and so forth much more effective. And then the retail will kind of fill in to better serve these commuters. And you can really have some nice synergy between all the components fitting together nicely. Looking at some market research for the Hacienda Pleasanton office park and then also a similar one in Palo Alto. Folks, when presented with this future vision of PRT, said that their solo commuting, which was at 90%, would be cut about half. Carpooling would go way up. Train ridership would go way up. And it ends up, you've got all these surface parking lots, all this asphalt in these office parks, and you get 50 acres of parking lots that you can redevelop. So it ends up being a real estate infill play, and a very profitable one because the land's already paid for. And people said they take about 1.3 PRT trips per day, which is a pretty thriving circulation system. So we get this notion of horizontal mixed use in suburbia. So typically in a more urbanized area, downtown Sacramento, we think of a really convenient, walkable place. And then these suburban office parks don't have that characteristic. But then you can envision, well, you can take the PRT system a half a mile and get to an interesting place to do your shopping and go to a restaurant. And there's even some recreational opportunities there. And then, so you take the PRT and then you walk around in a walkable area. And then over time, they're going to infill this place with mixed-use areas over time and make it more and more walkable. But right now, nobody walks around in this place. So when we design one of these systems, we figure out where all the people are, where all the workers are, and then try to have about 1,000 people per PRT station. So you ask the owners and you find out how many workers are where, and then you end up connecting the dots once you figure out where all the people are. And we did a pretty good job for the Hacienda system. And then you get this notion of when you don't have your car trunk, how do you get around? So this is the hook and go way of grocery shopping. But the problem there in the picture is she's got plastic bags and she needs to have canvas bags, right? So it's kind of good, but she can do better. I'll go into some of the planning details for these kinds of systems. So they have to be safe. And automated systems that are separated from people are about 100 times safer than people driving around talking on the cell phone. crashing into each other, right?